My Very Last Life. Chapter 5. The Business. This week, I wrote my first invoice this year. It shocked even me. I had to write an invoice. I did a little thing on Zoom for the Stuttgart Krimi Festival, Crime Festival, Crime Writers Mystery Festival, Crime Writers Festival, Mystery Writers Festival. And I did it on Zoom, so it was an online thing. And I had to write an invoice for it. And I looked at my invoices, on my computer. And there were two invoices before, but they were pro forma invoices. They were the money that I was still getting from the books that I had finished and completed and had been published this year. So and that's basically the money I was living from all this year, just books that I'd written a year before, and now I finally get the final, part of the money for it. And of course that money is basically gone now. And that's what I was living from. And I sat down to write this invoice for money for, to get paid for this job I'm doing. And it was the first invoice, the first non-pro forma invoice that I'd written this year, number 1. And it's December. I realized how bad it's been and how deep I've been in this hole for how long. A year without income. This was a year without jobs, without income. I have, as a writer, I have, the big jobs, which is writing a book, and I get paid for the book. And then I have a lot of small jobs, which is, I do some performance. I sell an article. I do a commentary on, the radio or TV and get paid for an interview or something, or I do some kind of stand-up thing, But this year, that was it. And it wasn't Corona. It started, the horror of this year started earlier. It started really last year when our conflict with our publisher came to a head, and we were not able to deliver the third book in the trilogy on time. And the book had not been doing as well as it should have been doing. They had put more money into marketing than the book deserved. The book was not selling as well. I think they did the marketing poorly, probably, but who knows? The book didn't do as well as it should have. That was depressing for me in the first place, and then I was thrown into a deep depression, which was covered basically the last 5 years. It's been a long time, and we couldn't finish the last book. We just couldn't do it. And we had a big fight with the publisher because of it. They were just fed up. We kept saying, we'll get it done. We'll have it next week. We'll have it next month. We'll have it, give us and they just got fed up. And their business, plan for getting the book out was completely fucked up because we couldn't do this. And so finally they gave us the ultimatum. They said, we're not giving you the money if you don't give us the book like by this month or at the end. They gave us a couple of months to finish it. And so we buckled down and we got it done, and we really got it done, and we finished it. And it's a good book. I think it works well. I think it's really good, maybe even the best one of the trilogy. But that was the end of the relationship with the publisher, and they said, we don't want anything from you, and go fuck yourselves. And that was it. And so we're out of a publisher, and we're basically down as far as you can get. And I think there will be more books in this series. I can sell it probably to another publisher. I probably, since time has passed, we can probably return to this same publisher and restore the relationship. And there's all these things can be redone, and all these things can be repaired, and all these, there are all the books that we have that have not been sold, that are half finished or partly finished, or proposals are done. We can still sell them. We can still make something out of them. It's not all bad, but it's very bad. And so this entire year was made up of trying to get out of this hole I've dug myself into, and in December, I wrote my first invoice. The invoice was not for writing. It was for doing an online show. It was show hosting, basically. It was putting together the show. It was hosting it together with Astrid, which we know how to do because because I met a guy named, I could use his name, but I probably shouldn't. I'm going to call him R, like Kafka did, R period, R, the letter R. So R, I met R, I guess last year. Was it last year? Was it this year? Yeah, I think it was last year. And this is a guy who he's a kindergartner. He takes care of kids in a kindergarten, and that's his job. But he's also a writer, and he wrote one book which was not successful, and he writes short stories that no one wants to hear, and he's up there, and I don't know how old he is. He's probably as close to 60, I guess. So he's an older guy, and he's not necessarily healthy, and he's divorced, and his life didn't really work out, and that's why I like him. That's why I like this guy. I look at him, and I don't need to know the details. I don't need to know what he says. He probably will say, "Oh, I'm fine. Don't worry about it." I don't know what he will say, but I look at him, and I realize he wanted to be a writer, and he wanted to be, I don't know, Bertolt Brecht and Thomas Mann, and he wanted to be recognized, and he wanted to be in the newspapers and have the interviews and be taken seriously as a literary artist. And he was not. That did not work out. And something bad happened in his life. He is in bad financial situation. I don't know the details, but it's clearly bad. It's similar to mine, though he does have a steady, a constant, a consistent income from this job as taking care of kids at a daycare center. So that's good. That's better than I have. So his situation is actually better than mine, but he went out and he started making a series of live stand-up evening shows with writers and musicians. And in Berlin, there's a lot of them in Berlin. It's not uncommon. They call them Lesebühne, which is reading stages or reading shows. And what it is you invite young authors like poetry slammers and young authors who are unpublished or barely published or published in literary journals or things like that. Bloggers, publishers, young writers or older writers who have not yet or never get into the real publishing world. And he invites them to the place in a bar around here where I often go, and they have this evening in the bar, and they stand up in a microphone and they read their texts, their stories, and he reads his stories, one or two stories of him, and there's some girl, usually it's a girl, a singer-songwriter chick singing about her, either the climate change or guys not calling her back or something like that, or whatever. I'm being sarcastic, but it's actually very nice. It's actually very good music usually, and the stories aren't really my kind of stories. I'm a more commercial writer, and I expect a certain standard, and these guys tend to be more hobby writers. They're doing it while they're students, and then when they get a real job, they're going to stop doing it. For 99% of them. And I don't stop doing it, and I want a readership, and they don't really want a readership. They want their friends to admire them. Okay, so that's but that's, I respect that. That's okay. But he does a lot of work getting together these little Lesebühnen, these writer shows, these literary shows in the evening, once or twice a month. He had 3 shows going on. Now he has 2. And he did most of them two of those shows with monthly shows with a partner, and his partner had to leave the town he got a job in some other town, and he had to leave, and so they were looking around for someone to partner with him and to organize it and to stand on stage and introduce the people and and read their own stories also on stage live, and he asked me if I could do it, and it was one of the few times in life people have asked me to do something, have seen me as some kind of a professional person who can do something and asked me to do it for them. I don't know why. Maybe I don't have contacts enough to people, but for some reason I'm not the person who people say, oh, we thought Mr. Hansen, can you do this or that? There was a time when a book comes out, they will notice me because the book is out, and they will ask me to do a reading or something, or do something in television or something, but they won't. No one says, I have this job, I need someone to edit this paper, I need someone to do this, and then Hansen could do it. No one says that, but he did, and I didn't even know that he was doing it. We were sitting at this bar and it was a summer, and I was outside, and we were chatting. And he was at the table, and a couple of my friends were at the table, and we were just chatting. And he started talking about, I need this, I need another guy, and we thought maybe you could do it. And I said, oh boy, yeah, you don't want me. I'm not the guy to do this kind of stuff. No one ever. This is, and I went on some stupid rant, saying why I was the worst guy, and then a friend of mine, punched me in the shoulder and said, dude, he's asking you to co-host his show with him. And I didn't realize that he was actually asking. I thought he was just kind of, gabbing. But he was asking. And I said, oh, well, yeah, I could imagine that. And it wasn't a great opportunity because there's no money in it. No one, who comes to these shows? 20 people, 30 people, right? And then they pass around the hat, and each of the riders get 10 euros, 20 euros. So it's more work than it is worth it, of course. But I was down at the bottom already. And I looked at this and I said, okay, I'm at the bottom. I'm where I never wanted to be in my life. And here it is, it's an opportunity. It's a small opportunity. There is no profit in it. There is nothing that will get me anywhere in it. But I get a chance to stand up once a month on a stage and read my stories. I ended up telling my stories. I'm not a good reader, and I don't like reading the stories. So I would take my stories of various kinds. I do stories that cannot be published because they're not commercial enough. That some are funny, some are stupid, some are ghost stories or cat stories, and some are, stories about violence and sex and horror of living, And I don't get a chance to publish or make these public in any way, but this gave me the chance. So I could do this, and I liked it, and I realized I was better at telling the stories than in reading them. And so I stopped reading them from pages, standing in front of a microphone, looking down at the page, which is stupid. And I put away the pages, and I told the story into the microphone, looking, the audience in the eye. And it was fun, even though it was more work than usefulness, and he respected me for doing a good job, and I respected him, even though we were both kind of what we would probably, or at least what I would say, losers. Not among the winners, not the guys going in and out of the literary parties or the editorial offices of the big newspapers. We weren't that guys. I had my chance to do that, and I'd blown it. And I look at this guy, and I see a guy who he obviously knows that he's made mistakes in life, just like I do. And he sees it, and he maybe doesn't know how to change it, but he hasn't given up. He is not sitting around complaining. He's not sitting around pretending to be some kind of a genius, pretending that his defeat is actually a victory. He's not sitting around cynically you know, pretending to be superior to everyone, morally have. Often when when you are defeated and you lose, you have you try to grab the moral superiority, the moral high ground. And you say, well, at least I didn't sell out, or these guys are all so stupid. They're so full of themselves. They're all assholes, and a lot of people do that. I do that. Most people I know do that. Most people who are defeated in some way do that. I know I do. But he doesn't. He said, okay, I'm going to accept this, and I'm going to do something that I can do, anything that I can do. And this he can do, and he puts a lot of energy into it. He spends a lot of evenings going to, poetry slams and talking to writers and musicians and saying, and people that he likes. He says, I want to invite you to do this show. Would you come and do it? And then he does the organization, and he knows all these people, and he puts a lot of energy into it, and he's dedicated to it. And it's a little, even though these aren't the great writers of the world, it's a little piece of art, a little masterpiece that he's made, because he just does it and does it and does it and dedicates his life to it. Doesn't matter if there's only 5 people in the audience, he does it. And I admire that. And I looked at him and I realized, this is, if I'm going to be defeated, if I'm going to not reach the goals I want, this is the way I want to do it. I want to do it still creating something I can be proud of, and something that is valuable in some way, even on this level, and not complaining that, I was stabbed in the back or whatever, which I do. But I don't want to. I want to do it like this guy does it. So we started doing these shows together. And then Corona came, and I said, well, online. We can do this online. And he said, no, we can't. He's very much into live. He says, no, it's not the same. It's not the same as standing on stage. Well, it's okay. It's not the same as standing on stage, but there are advantages if you do it online by Zoom. We figured out what Zoom was fairly early. And I said, we do it by Zoom. The advantage is that you don't have to be in Berlin. So you don't have to have a writer who lives in Berlin to come, from his day job, and run over and come into the bar and stand from and stage the microphone and speak to the microphone for 2 hours, for 10 minutes, and then another 10 minutes for in a space of 2 hours. We can have a guy from Frankfurt, from Hamburg, from America, anyone. He can be anywhere. All he has to do is sit in front of a computer and turn on Zoom. So we have access to all these people, and that means also we have access to a larger audience, because our viewers can also be sitting in their living room in, Munich or Freiburg. They don't have to be in Berlin. And so we started doing this, and it was very small. It's still very modest, but we still get, 100, 150 viewers every time we do it, which is more than 15, right? And so at some point during the after the first lockdown here in Germany, there was a period where we thought the lockdown was over and we can go back to doing in bars. And he said, okay, good, we're going to stop this online thing. It's bullshit. And we're going to go back and find a bar to do it. But then the second lockdown came, and we never had that chance. And it would have only been, in the bars, it would have only been 15 people anyway, and not 100, 150. That's a big difference. And now he's come around to a point where we both believe we're going to be doing this for most of 2021, probably the entire year. Nothing's going to be live in bars. Everything's going to be online. And then that changed things, and we started thinking about other things we could do. And I thought about, with Astrid, I started another reading show of my own called Lagerfeuer Helden, and with a little group of people who are interested. Also, R is on board with it. He's doing it, but I brought it, brought it to life. I founded it, and it's more professional writers, writers who write for a living, writers who publish in larger publishing houses. Not the big bestseller writers; we're too small for them. But the mid-sized writers we can get, and we can get an audience. We do it twice a month, every other week. We can get an audience on a Friday evening it's live on Facebook. We do it in Zoom. There's only a couple of us on Zoom. There's only a dozen people on Zoom, but we stream it live on Facebook, so it's live on Facebook. And that Facebook stream, within the first, 3 days, we usually get between 100 and up to 300, sometimes 400 viewers. They go on during the night or the next day on Facebook, and they watch it. And they watch the show, and we get one writer to come on, and he tells his stories. He doesn't read from his book, but he tells the story. He tells anecdotes. He answers questions. We talk to him. It's a talk show. It's a live show. We have a book that we give away. His book, we give away the book of the writer, and people have to answer a question and things like that. So we do this thing, and we've gotten used to doing it. We know how to do it, and we've gotten the technology a little bit better. We invested a little bit in our technology here, so the videos sound and look better, and we learned how to center ourselves in front of the camera, to look into the camera, to establish eye contact with the audience, and we know how to make jokes and make it funny, and get the guests to give their best and to talk. They're not used to talk shows, these writers. They're kind of hermit like people, and academic and abstract people, but we bring something out of them. We get them to talk and make jokes and laugh, and we have contact with the audience. We ask them, what do you guys think, and tell us what you think, and so while everyone else around us was rejecting this online life, and it's just not the same as them. They hate it, and plus, they'll get our data, and it's horrible and stupid, and I just don't want to do this. I'm going to wait until we can go back to the bars, or to live shows or something like that. Astrid and I and Matthias, we concentrated on figuring out how this works, the online life, how it works. And now with the second lockdown, people are beginning to realize that it's going to be online for a while. This is serious. I don't know why they didn't know it was serious. It's a pandemic, for Christ's sake. It's serious. This is a serious thing. This is like the Black Pest in the Middle Ages that took a third of Europe. This is not a joke. I don't know how they would not take it seriously. It's going to be around for a while. But we were one of the few people, and in the publishing world didn't take it seriously either. They hated it, because if you're online, that means you don't need the bookstores, and the publishers and the bookstores are connected at the hip. They need each other, and the publishers discourage people from going online. They have a huge marketing campaign to get people away from Amazon, to make Amazon, an immoral thing to do. To order from Amazon is considered immoral, partly because it's American. It's, there's a strong nationalism in Germany which just rejects everything that's American, and partly because it's modern, because everything that modern is also rejected, but partly because it takes money away from the bookstores, and the bookstores are considered culture. And the publishers here in Germany are considered culture. They're not considered capitalistic, companies. I don't know why, because that's what they are. Clearly, everything they do is very capitalistic. It's clearly to make money. But they're not considered. That people are there in Germany. They're kind of like, Germany kind of is very kind of authoritarian people, and so they look at these publishers and the bookstores as people of authority, and so those are the authorities in the world of culture, and the writers themselves are not. So if you have a self-publisher, even though you've written a book, it could be the best, but you pour your soul into this book and you self-publish it, you're considered a hobbyist or a bad person, even some kind of immoral person. You have to be selected by the publisher, and the publisher has to say, yes, I am up here on the top of society, and I say, read this person. And then everyone says, oh, okay, I'll read this person. Readers in Germany tend to look towards the publishers in the bookstores, these people of authority, rather than trying to figure out whether they actually like a book themselves or they like a writer themselves. Okay, but that's a problem. That's a different problem. But there was a large rejection within the publishing world, and there still is, the digital, of Zoom, of the digital life, of online life, of writers going online and hawking their wares, talking to people, meeting people, their readers in the social media. That's considered immoral. It's considered barbaric. But we did it, and we stuck with it. Our 2 shows that are online, and we did it again and again and again. And this time in the second lockdown, people started to realize it's not going to end, and we're going to need people who know how to use Zoom. And now people have been noticing us. They're saying, "Oh, you're those guys from Lagerfeuer Hilton. We know what Lagerfeuer Hilton is," and they're working with us, and they say, "Oh, I have some other writers we'd like to send to you." And so now we're even beginning to talk about money. We're not doing it well, and most publishers are very, very skeptical about giving us money for what we're doing, because why would they? It's just all we're doing is sitting in front of a camera, right? But a couple of weeks ago, the Stuttgart Crime Writers Festival, Mystery Writers Festival, which we would have been invited to if it had taken place. We would have gone to Stuttgart and read from the last book in the trilogy, the only reading opportunity we would have had with that book, and that was canceled, of course, or postponed till late next year, theoretically, because of Corona. But they said, well, look, we have to do something with the Krimi Festival, and so we're going to do some things online. We're going to postpone the festival itself, but we're going to do some things online. And one of the things is entertaining the sponsors. They have, because to say thank you to the sponsors, they have like an internal event where they have some writers. They get on stage and they say, "Oh, you sponsors are wonderful, and thank you." And they talk and they read, and it's mystery writers come and perform only for the sponsors. And in this case, the sponsor is a bank in Stuttgart, and so and they're very grateful for this bank. It's great. It's the Hippo Bank, but and it's, or Unicredit. They call this 2 different banks involved, but they can't do it live, of course. They would come together live, and they would make a gala dinner with wine and food and someone on the stage, a couple of writers on the stage talking. And they can't do it this year. But they knew about our shows online, and they knew that we can do it. And we have a sense of humor, and we're, okay, and we can do it online. We know how to do it. You have to learn this. And so they called us up and said, "We want you to do this for us." And we did it last night. And it was a good little show. We had 3 really great writers, or an actress and two writers, and we talked, and they told their stories, and we talked about the books, and we made some jokes, and we entertained these people, and it was a success. And I wrote that invoice, first invoice this year, and it's fucking December. And then I went for a walk tonight, and I was listening to what's his name now? Murakami. I don't like his novels, but I like this. He wrote a book about running, thinking what I think about when I think about running, and it's kind of like an autobiographical book. And a friend of mine is a big fan of Murakami, and he recommended this book to me, and he said, that book that you wrote about leaving the church, about believing in God but leaving the church, Losing My Religion, which is a book I self-published it, very small book, but one of my most personal books probably. He said, he told me, that book is what I think about when I think about running. It's the equivalent for you as a writer, that book you wrote. And so I was curious about the Murakami book, and so I started listening it tonight on my walk on Audible, the audiobook, and a lot of things that he said, he talks about writing, resonated with me. And of course, all writers have a lot of various things in common. But one of the things was, he talked about when he was in his 20s, he ran a jazz club, a jazz bar, and it was working out, and he taught himself business. And when I was listening to how he talked about that, I realized I may be doing something here that I never wanted to do and never thought I could do. Starting a business. This these shows, their events, and if I can manage to make money out of them, which I'm starting to do, I'm starting to talk to the publishers about giving me money for publicizing and advertising their writers. It's a new thought for them because they spend a lot of money on advertising, of course, but not for some guy doing an online show. That's just weird for them. And so I have to talk them into doing it. I have to show them how to do it. And it's going to be a long slog to convince these guys to give me money, and then to give me a little money at first and then more money. And I've been talking to R about this, and he's getting more and more into it, and we're realizing we have to do this and we have to make money on it. And I realized just tonight, this, at some point, if this goes on, it's going to be a business. This is no longer about writing. It's a business. It's like a publishing business. It's like a book business. It's like bookstore business. It's like an event, agency business. It's a bar business. It's a stand-up business. It's a stage business. It's entertainment business. And I'm going to have to start learning something that I've never wanted to learn, never done before in my life. It's a completely new thing. Kind of scary, kind of weird, but I've started it. And the question is, when in parallel, I'm writing my books. And so at some point next year, probably the publishing industry will be a little bit better and spending more money on books. And I'm going to go back and start selling books to publishers again. Probably going to need a new agent. But I'm going to do that. And I'm gonna sell those books. I'm going to do that. And then once it's sold, when I'm making money again from publishing, if that happens, I'm sure it will. It will. Then the question will be: do I stop putting money and effort and time into this business? And I have to. I have to keep going. I know now. It's going to be tough if I'm doing 2 things at the same time, 3, 4, 5 things at the same time, but I have to keep going with it because I started it. I've got it to the point where we are talking about money, and that means I need another year and I will be making a profit, or another 2 years. I mean, it depends on what happens with Corona, of course. It could be that as soon as we have a vaccine that no one will want to go online again. But if we establish this, if we have a reputation, then people will come online even though they don't have to. And we can do part of it live, of course. So I wanted to do something new with my life, something different with the last leg of my life, and this is starting. When I think about what I'm going to do with the last part of my life, some big, great thing, some big thing that challenges me and changes my life in some way that I never expected. I thought about something like taking a year or 2 years or 10 years and walking through the U.S. from one side to the other on foot. That would be a cool thing to do. Or to join a monastery for a year or forever. To go to a monastery and meditate or something. Or something like that. Volunteer or go into politics. Go into local politics. Just get involved in some kind of local thing down at the city hall or so. I don't know. Something I would never do before. And tonight I realized I have just begun doing something that I never thought I would do and never planned to do and never wanted to do. So, wish me luck. That's it, folks. And thanks for listening. Tune in again next week or tomorrow or whenever it is I do this again. Whatever, I don't know. If you're interested in the things that are really important to me, I write them in books and I put them on videos. Check out my books on Amazon.com or my YouTube channel or my Twitter and Facebook feeds, or subscribe to my newsletter. That's kind of a lot now that I say it like that. Or any of the above, whatever. I hope I can contribute something to your life or to someone's life, anyone's life really, in some way. I appreciate your support, and I wish you all the luck and success and happiness and fulfillment in your life. Take care till next time.